Have you been told you need to stop doing what you love, whether it's exercise, running, or a sport? Well, here at Dynamic, we don't like that answer. In this podcast, we'll talk to leaders in the health and wellness space from Southwest Florida to get the solutions you need to get you back to doing what you love. Welcome to the Dynamic Naples Podcast. What's going on, Southwest Florida? Today, I wanted to jump on and record a podcast on frozen shoulder and its relationship to Dupuytren's contracture. So this came about because I had seen a handful of patients that came in for the chief complaint was a frozen shoulder, adhesive capsulitis, same thing. But I also noticed their hand would be in this somewhat contracted state, like their fingers would curl a little bit. Definitely not all of them, but there was a number, enough for me to kind of scratch my head and kind of wonder why this is happening. So when you look up either of these conditions on like a WebMD or a Healthline, you'll find the words idiopathic, which means we don't understand why this happens. You'll see there's associations between some hormonal changes, so like thyroid disease and diabetes. Those both keep appearing. So there's nothing definitive here necessarily, but I think we have a bit of a smoking gun. So let me just start off by talking about Dupuytren's contracture, what it is. So it's a contracture of the hand. So these nodules develop and basically have this cord-like structure that becomes prominent by the base of your pinky finger and ring finger. And if it gets severe enough, it'll make sometimes one or both of those fingers curl. A study in 2021 determined that this is caused by a T-cell mediated autoimmune response. So adhesive capsulitis or frozen shoulder, same thing. That is a condition that affects the capsule of the shoulder. So the capsule, all your joints have capsules around them. They're kind of thick and leathery feeling. It's really sort of an amalgamation of ligaments and connective tissue. So what can happen is it becomes inflamed and kind of adheres down on the ball and socket joint, and then your range of motion is severely reduced, and it can be very painful. Again, we don't have a full understanding of it, but we do know that diabetics and people with thyroid disease like Hashimoto's are more susceptible to developing a frozen shoulder. We also know that thyroid disease is triggered by autoimmune disease. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune condition, and there's definitely an established connection between type 2 diabetes and autoimmune disease. So patients with diabetes have altered function of immune cells and have reactive autoantibodies. So there's actually a hypothesis, this was established in 2019, that the inflammation of diabetics is attributable to autoimmune disease. So it's starting to look more and more like autoimmune disease might be the underlying root cause. So if that was the case, you definitely would find an increase in the incidence of Dupuytren's contractures with people that have frozen shoulder. So I looked at the research, and that's exactly what you can find in the evidence. So a study back in 2001, and a sample of 58 patients with frozen shoulder, 30 had evidence of Dupuytren's contracture. So, relatively small sample size, but that's still over 50%. Another study found that Dupuytren's contracture was over 8 times more likely in those that had frozen shoulder. So this, to me, is pretty exciting stuff because Dupuytren's contracture often ends up in the surgical release of those nodules and those cord-like structures. And then frozen shoulder is a long process, sometimes 6 months to a year to resolve. It could involve cortisone injections, some painful rehab, and it's very debilitating. So what if we can prevent or slow down the process or even accelerate the recovery with some dietary changes? Because we know that autoimmune disease has a couple of underlying reasons. So one of the biggest ones is vitamin D deficiency, and that's easy enough to get through diet. If you're getting some egg yolks, if you're getting some red meat in your system, or even just sunlight, or there's always the option for supplementation. The other thing that causes it is that molecular mimicry. I did a whole podcast on that. Certain plants have these non-nutritive amino acids that can be incorporated into our cells, and then the immune system can recognize that those aren't supposed to be there and attacks it. So certain plant foods can be triggered for some autoimmune disorders. It's also interesting to note that these things don't really happen to people in their 20s or 30s. It usually starts in around 40s, 50s, or later. And that to me suggests that this is a process. Sort of like some foods might be like a slow poison, or a vitamin D deficiency might start to rear its ugly head over lots of time. So, if you live in the northern climates and you don't have access to full sunlight all 365 days out of the year, and you avoid red meats or you don't eat a lot of eggs, and you're developing something like a frozen shoulder or Dupuytren's contracture, probably not a bad idea to get your vitamin D levels checked. So just listen to the ad at the end of this podcast, the Let's Get Checked ad. You can get a home test kit for vitamin D for under $80 with that code, DPT30. So that's all I have for you today, Southwest Florida. I'll be talking to you guys soon. Do you have unexplained pain, or do you wonder just how healthy you are? When was the last time you had your blood tested? Blood chemistry analysis is a great way to stay ahead of any health conditions, and now you can have control of your health with Let's Get Checked. Let's Get Checked is an incredible company that sends blood tests to your home. You can choose from over 30 different tests, whether that's liver function, testosterone, micronutrient, cholesterol, or C-reactive protein, which is a marker for inflammation. It's sent to you with free shipping, and you get your results in 2 to 5 days, no physician referral needed. Use the code DPT30 for 30% off. Go to letsgetchecked.com and use the code DPT30. Did you know that you can get started with physical therapy without a physician's referral? Physical therapists don't just solve pain, we get down to the root cause and keep it from coming back. We also discuss all things health, such as nutrition and lifestyle changes. If you feel that you could use some help, let's get on a free consult call. Go to www.dynamicnaples.com and sign up for a free call. Also, if you like this podcast, please give us a rating wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us spread the message. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.